So, I mean, finally, if you see the constituents of being a maritime power are widespread, you certainly need a large navy. That is one element of it. But there are many other elements, as we know about, commercial shipbuilding, a seafaring population, and ship repair, ship breaking, maybe able to police the waters around an adequately strong coast guard. Um, int- uh, um, your inland water also using over there.
Yeah, inland waterways
Yes,
is a very
there's an immense
important.
potential over there which is untapped. I mean, here in Goa, fortunately, at least we still have a large number usage of inland waterways. But in many parts of the country, I think there is immense potential that can be done over here. So all these constituents really make up a nation to become a maritime power. And a strong navy by itself is inadequate, really, in its wider sense. So I would think that it requires. I'm glad that there is a conscious effort right now being done to address various sectors. In some sectors, we've done exceptionally well. If you take in shipbreaking, I think we're still one of the leaders. In providing of seafarers, we're generally within the top three or top five, depending on whether you're counting officers or ratings. So in these sectors, we've done exceptionally well. But a number of, as you've mentioned, huge deficiencies in our flagged fleet, which has really a long way to go. But moving ahead, sir, if you feel going back to the topic of of shipyards, do you have any suggestions regarding shipyard reform? Uh, that anything can be done to increase productivity and to make us more competitive in this environment?
Yes, I'm afraid our public sector shipyards have been living inside a protected shell. They are more or less assured of orders as far as warships and submarines are concerned. So all government orders do go to the shipyard. Though in theory, often has been said that we'll do open tendering and may the best shipyard win, but I'm afraid that doesn't work out in practice. The Department of Defense Production makes sure that 95 to 99% of the warship building orders go to the public sector. So they have an assured list of works to be done, so they are not really worried. So that takes away the incentive to be innovative, to be more efficient, to be more productive. So I think our public sector shipyard would benefit immensely if the game was thrown open and they were made to compete with private sector shipyards. And private, there are now, they weren't till recently, but now there are enough competitors in the private sector to give the public sector a run for their money. So one reform certainly is that competition, the bidding, tendering for construction should be open, and may the best shipyard or the most efficient shipyard win. That will give an incentive to the public sector to get more efficient and more innovative. The other is that we've got 8 shipyards, and I think you've suggested it in some of your writing that we need to, to merge some of them for greater efficiency. And I think the Chinese model again is something to follow because it pools your resources, it transfer of skills and efficiency, etc. So I would say two reforms are required urgently. One is to open the market for shipbuilding and give healthy competition to the public sector. And secondly, to try and merge some of the shipyards so that they can enhance their skills and efficiency.
So, if I could take on both of these topics of what you have suggested, I think actually now, even though there is open tendering largely, because I think the era of nomination is sort of ending, but it's extremely difficult for there to be a level playing field in this sectors. I mean, at the end of the day, public sector has created an infrastructure on land that was largely made available to them by government. There have been certain, I would say, grants given to them to improve their capacities to produce certain types of ships, etc. And now, for a this for a private yard which is entering this space, if he is going to invest a couple of thousand crores, he has to service that interest at around 10-12%. So, he himself sees himself on a back foot straight away on trying to compete for these contracts because he has to make good on servicing the capital that he's borrowed. The other issue that comes up also is now is on the reverse side. If you speak to the public yards, they say that we are extremely highly controlled. in our hire and fire policies, what we can do in our the hours that we can keep our workers engaged, etc. Whereas the private sector has got a lot more flexibility in this, and therefore it becomes very difficult for us, if we are not given this sort of support to compete with private yards. So there has to be some mechanism, I would say, by which you can bring these two down to a common playing field, a common level field, so that they can compete with each other. I mean, one formulation can be is that you run into a thing of of shared work, that you allow everyone to compete, but when the contract is won, then you can sort of split the work that at the L1 cost, on a 60-40 basis or 60% and 40% basis, so that the other yards can also come up at the same time. On the other formulation, sir, I am a big votary of, I think the current way we function is that this is, in a sense, sometimes you feel manufactured competition. Government competing against government is incestuous competition. I mean, if you have public yard competing against public yard, that is not the right way to go ahead. Public, if at all, has to compete against private, not against each others. And therefore, there's the best way to get around this issue is through some degree of consolidation. We've seen, I mean, this is the way forward in most, globally speaking. If you take Russia, United Shipbuilding Corporation has got some 30-40 yards.
Yeah.
If you take China, the CSSC has got, another 15-20 yards which are operating under the CSSC frameworks. Europe, there's been a lot of consolidation in shipyards. In the US, you finally left to two conglomerates only. So one is, I think, one is Electric Boat, and so they are actually under
Bath Iron Works.
Yeah, Bath. That's all under. They come under General Dynamics, and the other is not Avondale, but which is the one that is in Mississippi. So that is.
But Monty, we already have examples of public-private synergy in the country. Our nuclear submarine project was, as you know, there was private contribution and there was public sector majorly. And even now, many public sector shipyards are actually offloading work to private shipyards in a small way. So each sector can build on its own strengths, whereas weapons and sensors can be left to the public sector, and hull and so other system can. So there is, and there was this system, this concept which I forget the name, which didn't work out, where each public sector shipyard chooses a private partner and then bids for.
No, so that is the. I mean, on the 75 India, that's what they intend to do even this time.
Yeah. Even now for the submarine project, each public sector shipyard has chosen a private partner, and then they are bidding jointly.
Yes, sir.
So the concept is there, but I think mentally we are still very protective of our public sector, and that grip has to be loosened a little bit.
What you just watched was just the tip of the iceberg. If you're as curious as us on subjects that govern the world and our lives, you're at the right place. Do consider subscribing, because the next conversation might just change how you see the world. Until then, keep reimagining yourself and know that the power of change lies within you. Jai Hind.